One of the boards amputated me on impact. I had just turned 21 when this had happened, just a few days prior to that.
In December of 1995, Steve Greer was traveling north on Highway 65 when he was involved in a serious head-on collision.
The other board just missed my knee and went all the way through my thigh. And so anyway, it pinned me in the car. It took them about an hour to get me out of the car because it was stuck in the door, so they couldn't just pull the door off to get me out. And then when they got me to the hospital, that's when they sedated me, and when I woke up, they had told me that my leg was amputated.
Steve's life would never be the same.
You know, I'd been in wrestling at Ozark. I'd run cross country. I'd played basketball. I'd ridden the MS-150 11 times up to that point. In fact, just before I lost my leg, I had just started training for a triathlon.
He worked hard to regain his strength.
After losing my leg, then when I got my first prosthetic, I came to the Cox Rehab Center that's here in this building. And so that's where I went through, did all of my rehabilitation.
Part of his rehab involved learning to use a prosthetic leg.
We want to get them into a check socket, get them up and going as soon as possible. And then that also comes along and benefits with our rehabilitation program, which is usually going on at the same time. And that's where we get that integration between our prosthetists and our physical therapists, working side to side to make sure we make the right choices and we get the right componentry selections, and we customize the prosthetic really for the patient's needs so they get what they want to meet their everyday activities of daily living. Some of the changes that we made is we definitely put him in a higher dynamic response foot that returns energy, which Steve needs to run and be as active as Steve is. The other thing is we changed the suspension system. We moved him from a pin lock system into a vacuum system, which tend to be much more comfortable, and he tended to be able to control his leg much better with that type of a system.
It is significant because one of the things about the vacuum system is it uses 100% of your skin, so you're touching all the way around. Whereas the other systems had pressure points, so you were taking pressure in certain places. And now it just uses the whole leg, so it's a lot more comfortable. You know, the more comfortable you are, the longer you're going to be able to run. So anyway, you know, the more comfortable my leg is, the more endurance I have, the further I can go, the easier it is to train.
Over the past 2 decades, Steve has vowed to never let his prosthetic leg hold him back.
Since the accident, I've ridden, for example, the MS-150. I've ridden, I think, six or seven times. I like to ride bikes. I play basketball. I do pretty much everything that I did before, except for long distance running.
What we did with Steve is really look at his activity level. We went through a thorough exam with our prosthetist when he came in, and really went to meet Steve's goals with what he wanted to accomplish. And the things that we did is we fabricated a new prosthesis. We used an elevated vacuum system. We increased his dynamic response foot, added some vertical shock, which is very important with running, and basically it's ended up in increased comfort.
So he decided to revisit an old dream by training for a triathlon.
I have done a lot of different sports, but I've never done anything like triathlon or running any kind of distance, and that's something that I'm starting to train for this year. Steve
is certainly an inspiration to us all.
Steve's been a real inspiration to work with. Highly motivated, really. Steve, anything we ask Steve to do, Steve manages to do it to the best of his ability and puts out 100%.
It's one of those things that you can do anything you want if you just choose to. There's going to be more of a challenge. There's going to be painful times. There's going to be times where, you know, all of the newness of the accident has kind of worn out, and people, you know, aren't paying attention a whole lot, and you're going to feel alone. But the key is if you just choose to, your life will be just like it was before, just with some more challenges.